Greetings and welcome to yet another video on remote ID. My name is Banksy and I live in Australia, and I'm doing this video in response to the Department of Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development, Communication and the Arts questionnaire on the implementation of remote ID. It's a heck of a department. The questions that they ask are here. I've just copied and pasted them into a OneNote document. All of the department's questions are relevant, although they seem to be weighted to the fact that it is going to happen here in Oz. I guess we can assume that we will definitely be getting it. The purpose of this video is to go beyond the questions, as they don't provide a forum for all of the variables and opinions that need to be considered. I'm hoping someone in the department in CASA will see this video and see it as filling in some of the gaps left out by the questionnaire. I'm certainly going to be sending it to some of my CASA contacts. I'm not going to explain what remote ID is. Plenty of people have done that before. However, I'd like to explore the relevance that it will have to us in Australia. First, some background on who I am. I'm a STEM and aerospace teacher here in sunny Queensland. I'm also an MAAA instructor and have flown RC planes for quite some time. I learned to fly in Lae, New Guinea with Morribee Aeromodelers. Let me know if you know of Morribee Aeromodelers. What a great club way back then. RC planes and lately drones have been a lifelong journey for me. They've been a source of joy, of learning and a career path. That photo on the right hand side was taken down at a Gold Coast club. I think near where Surfers International Raceway used to be. And now it's the way that you fly a plane, bare feet and with a beanie on. Anyway, I digress. Saying that they've been a source of joy, of learning and a career path. As a high school level aerospace teacher and model plane instructor, I seek to pass on that knowledge and joy onto the young people in my care. I've told anyone who is willing to listen that I reckon I could teach any subject, maths, science, English and even Chinese, using RC model aeroplanes and drones as the stimulus. At school we have an assortment of DJI and 3DR drones, as well as 3D printed ones with Pixhawk flight controllers in them. We also have a lot of RC fixed-wing aircraft that we train students on. Students learn to fly RC radio control gliders, which are old Bixlers with the motors removed. And then they progress to powered flight. If they enjoy the process, they can become part of the Savannah kit aircraft build in the upper years. During this time, a few of them go on to their Cert 2 in aircraft line maintenance with Aviation Australia or skills compliance here at Redcliffe. Some have joined the military and are technicians or pilots. Some are with the airlines in the same roles. And as you can see, there is a definite career path. Incidentally, those drones I showed you were donated. All of the scale foamies that were hanging from the ceiling, donated. Quite a few of the radios, donated. The Savannah kit aeroplane, donated. I'll come back to the significance of this point later. Accessibility to the hobby has always been one of the main issues for young people. Plenty of kids that I interact with enjoy the activity but don't get to engage with model aeroplanes, like I used to when I was young. Yes, some students do join the local MAAQ club, which is the Model Aeroplane Association of Queensland. However, these are few and far between. I remember making a 2-channel radio control cardboard plane called a Parasol with my friend, and we took our push bikes down to the local park and flew and crashed it there. No one was injured. Just like then, today's students still don't have ready access to flying to an MAAQ or a club flying field. They're simply too far away. And the reality is that most parents are not going to take their child to the field and stay there with them. I've been told a few years ago when we used to drive a school minibus to our local flying club that students were welcome on the weekend to learn to fly, but have to be under parent supervision and not to just drop them off. I fully support that approach, as MWQ clubs aren't child minding centres. However, most parents simply aren't going to sit there for the whole afternoon unless they are flying as well, and this is rarely the case. Model plane clubs have an ageing population and struggle to attract young people. Everyone knows that. If a kid is going to fly, it will probably be off their own bat down at the local park or at a school that supports fixed wing and drone flying. I should add that a lot of the students that I teach will leave the activity as they get to the upper grades, but then they'll come back to it later on in life. They discover cars and members of the opposite sex, but the seed has been planted and it will never ultimately leave them. They may, however, still pursue a career in the aerospace industry post-high school. Now, recreational RC planes and drones have been a big part of this. Now, having said all this, I can understand both sides of the argument, especially the need to regulate this disruptive technology. People will always do stupid, illegal things, and we've seen this with ignorant and willful people flying near aircraft, flying their model planes, drones, whatever, near aircraft and airports. I personally have observed a drone being flown under the flight path for YRED. I've also observed a bunch of guys flying high-performance electric flying wings, also under the flight path in a nearby park. But both times, a quiet word with them was all that was needed, and they haven't come back. I can see the possible need for remote ID because of the ease of purchasing and flying a drone and the lack of common sense that people have. I've seen that particularly when people interact with any transportation technology: cars, bicycles, motorbikes, e-scooters, jet skis, boats, to name a few. The easier it is to use the technology, the more larrikins will use it in creative ways for their entertainment without any regard to safety and the law. However, let's not throw out the baby with the bathwater. We don't see a lot of drone, say that again, because it's an important fact. We don't see a lot of drone incidents, let alone accidents, in this country. The drone sightings seem anecdotal, and the language used is interesting, such as an increasing number of drones, without actual figures being presented. And I've got a couple of websites here that I'll show you. This one was CASA, unsafe drone activity in the Gold Coast region. And if you have a look at the language, like I went looking for actual numbers but couldn't find any. I really tried hard. But we have this kind of language. There's been an increase in drone sightings. Okay. And scrolling down, I can't see anything else except that drones are on the increase and there's more of them that are coming into conflict and being reported. This website here, Aussie City battles drone flights in restricted airspace. Okay. Authorities are warning about the rising number of drones. But what is the rising number of drones? Where's the hard data? I would really like to, I agree with this. There's safety risks to aircraft. But I'd like to see the data on that before I form more of an opinion on how many drones are flying in restricted airspace. So having said that, all that, I had to go to the US to see if I could find some data. And I found this site here, the FAA, and they've actually got some hard data in this form. They've got all these Excel spreadsheets. So I did a yearly search going back to 2016 I thought was reasonable. And this is what I found. They're the websites. So that's just as a little screenshot of the ones that I ripped. And from 2016 to 23, from January to March, this is the number in this column here of the reports. And I then had a look through the reports, and this is the number where evasive action was taken based on those reports. So I divided them out to see what was and they had the language in there of no evasive action required. So I divided it out, and found out that like back in 2016, 64% of the time there was no evasive action required. So they saw a drone, which means 36, if my maths is correct, 36% of the time there was evasive action required. But have a look how these figures pan out going forward. It definitely appears that there's an increase where there's no evasive action required. Okay, and that's just really the reverse of it. Have a look at the number total sightings. Now there's some big sightings back in 2018, 2019. Nothing's really increased that amount. And those numbers will become significant as well. I'll let you ponder on those. Evasive action. There's a relatively small percentage where evasive action was required. It seems like mostly that the aircraft just continues in its normal flight profile. So I guess the elephant in the room, for me, is not a big grey animal with a trunk. It's actually a feathery one, or rather flocks of them. Now, there are many large-sized birds flying anywhere they want in this vast land of ours. As pilots rely on see and avoid, in this case the onus is on the pilot, as birds probably see but don't avoid. Hey, it's their sky. Case in point, a recent crash of a Bell 206 Long Ranger and an eagle. Actually, there wasn't even a collision between the bird and the heli. The pilot took abrupt action which caused the rotor to sever the tail, according to the ATSB report. Last year, there was a fatal collision between an air tractor and an Australian bustard. I've seen what I believe to be a bustard on the school oval and also on the mudflats nearby. I wonder if I've got a pic. I do. Yeah, I've seen one on the school oval and on the mudflats nearby. This is close to our local airport, a matter of several hundred metres. Bustards are Australia's heaviest flying bird and the largest flying land bird. We also have many other large birds that can be seen near our airports. And I've got some stats here. You'll have to look down the left-hand column here. So there's a bustard of, the males can be up to 10 kilograms, 5 to 10 kilograms, and can stand up to 1 metre. Beautiful bird. Pelicans, around 3 kilogram. Ibis, the old bin chicken or swamp budgie, 1.5 kilogram. These ones came off the Brisbane Airport website. Cattle egret, half a kilo. Kestrel, 200 grams. White-bellied seagull, larger. Flying fox up to 1 kilo. Ducks, didn't realise they were so heavy. Fat ducks at 2.5 kilo. Cormorants, crows I thought were heavier. I would put them over a kilo, but anyway, 650 grams. And ospreys hang out around here as well, 1 to 2 kilogram, and I thought they were bigger. Compare that to a Bixler foamy with a flying weight of 890 grams. I'd know what I'd rather hit. I was going to hit anything. And I've just got some other stats here that I pulled off the Brisbane Airport Corporation website about bird strikes. And those bits and pieces there. You can pause this if you want to have a look at what I've got here. Some predicted data there. Okay, yeah, they're the birds. Now I've also got, this is actually true, I took this video of pelicans thermaling over our house because we live near the airport. I don't know what this will stream like, but this is a flock of 28 pelicans that are flying, and so I just videoed them because I thought they were fantastic, and they headed pretty much over Redcliffe Airport. Pretty much, they were headed in a direct line. Okay, again, something to behold. Beautiful birds. But nonetheless, quite large birds. Now, what was the pelican? Did I have the? I did, and they're greater than 3 kilo. They're massive, So imagine the size of a bustard. Okay, and I did say there's 28 of them there. No, I could only count them because when I froze the video. Now, that's the bird side of it. I'm wondering if we've reached something called peak drone, which is that point in time where we see consolidation in the use of drones, both in industry and recreational. An Australian drone company named AUAV reported in 2019 that after the hype of 2017 concerning professional drone use, there seems to be a consolidation in the market. The article can be seen here. And there's lots and lots of data on that. They talk about in the professional realm, a consolidation of it. And a more recent article, 2022, by a film company in the States says similar things. And they're focusing on the film side. But I guess the message is still the same. You know, have we sort of plateaued in the amount of drone usage? I don't know. I'm not qualified to speak on that, but people are talking about that. I think from an anecdotal perspective, admittedly, that ad hoc recreational flyers are even more fickle, especially younger ones. I'm talking about the kind of kid that only has fleeting exposure to flying model planes, not the ones that are given the opportunity to engage with them more. Because we know that kids will jump on the latest technological bandwagon and just as quickly drift away. I'd like to bet that there are less drones being sold to kids now than there were 5 years ago. Most kids have the attention span of a cattle grate. Sorry, kids. Based on this, I don't think drones are as much of a threat as is being made out. They're not even close. Therefore, why the need for a technology such as remote ID, which will do more harm than good? It is overkill. We don't have a problem with recreational flying. We won't have a problem with recreational flying. However, we will have a problem if we stop recreational flying. If remote ID was introduced here in Australia, the baby, or not so babies that are getting thrown out with the bathwater, are the older folk. I've talked about the career path for the youngsters, but what about the other end of the age scale? Old blokes like me who have done this as a lifelong activity will be affected. It's great for our mental health, keeps us interested, keeps us active, cognitively agile. We're just constantly learning new things. Just look at flight controllers, look at beta flight updates, look at all GPS navigation. So much to learn. Remember, I talked about the donated aircraft before. Many of the older flyers who are getting out of the hobby, perhaps due to age, are still willing to help in some way, even if it is to donate the aircraft that they used to fly. And we've been donated so much. Perhaps it is to fix aircraft. We had a chap for many years who used to say, my job is to keep him, which is me, flying. He would be constantly fixing aircraft and making aircraft for our students. I miss him. Sometimes it is to help train and mentor kids. These chaps just want to feel useful, bless them. So much experience to pass on to the younger ones. But we oldies don't necessarily want to join a local MAAQ club or whatever it is, just so we can fly. And there are various reasons for this, possibly because of the distance to travel. The accessibility issue again. But also some people don't like the vibe of the clubs for whatever reason. Surely we can make flying easy to access for both young and old. It seems some states and councils within those states are trying to do this. Here in Queensland, Brisbane City Council has set up 9 drone parks where you can pop up a fixed-wing foamy or a drone and have a fly. My local council, Moreton Regional Council, has no restrictions. And I do have, there you go. Now, before I go on any further, I'm not going to weigh in on the issue of insurance. I'm just talking about being able to fly your plane without harassing anyone or persons or property, and doing it sensibly. So you can see in Queensland, recreational is allowed in a park, commercial application, not allowed in some parks. The Brisbane City Council, okay, narrowing in within the state to Brisbane. There's 9 drone parks, and there's the rules for those. Electric, recreational, 7 a.m. Monday to Friday, no earlier than 9 a.m. You're not causing a nuisance, endangering others, or damaging the park. You're following CASA rules. Great stuff. I've checked out all these 9 drone parks. Excellent work. Whoever thought of that? Bort Regional Council, where we live. No restrictions at all. Interestingly, council say council cannot regulate the privacy issues that may arise from the flying of drones from or over a council park. Yeah, so, you know, if anyone has a whinge or a bleat about privacy, stiff. And there's other states. Western Australia, just like us here in Queensland. New South Wales, a lot stricter. Victoria, a lot stricter, but you can take off and land outside the park. And South Australia is the same. And in Northern Territory, you've got to apply. Go Queensland, go Western Australia, I reckon. Yeah. See, what Brisbane and Moreton councils are doing is fantastic, especially for youngsters and not to mention the older flyers. To sum it up, we don't seem to have a problem. There's been no accidents, no one has died. But if heavier regulation in the form of remote ID were to come in, I think many people would be forced out of the hobby. They just wouldn't forced out of the hobby. They just wouldn't bother putting the technology on their aircraft unless it already came with it, in which case they probably wouldn't purchase it. Be forced out of it. Overall, I think we would feel the repercussions of this down the track in an industry that is already groaning under the weight of insufficient trained personnel. My recommendations are for CASA to be a leader internationally in how recreational drones and fixed-wing model aircraft are integrated into our airspace. They could follow America's lead and place such a burden on flying. Dog's going ballistic, excuse me. They could follow America's lead and place such a burden on flying that no one will bother. Or they can have a common sense approach that recognises the threat or lack of it and actively fosters the nursery that recreational flying is to the industry. So how could this possibly be done? No remote ID, but, you know, perhaps you could think about registering an aircraft at the point of sale and a database of that, perhaps. You know, remote ID might be, if it does come in, for aircraft over 1 kilo, perhaps, and drones over that. If you sold your aeroplane, the registration is transferred with it, just like you have with a car. If it's a hand-built drone, then perhaps a flight controller could be registered. Just ideas, and I have to really have a good think about how it would work. I think, you know, I've seen CASA information letters come out, or information notices come out on social media, but I'm just not sure what the reach is for those. So I see nothing wrong. It would be expensive, but for radio and television advertising, once or twice a year, perhaps a bit longer, you know, perhaps money out of that could come out of our out of our club fees, perhaps. But it's interesting that, you know, the place that television could have an appropriate hour for, you know, younger people, you know, perhaps 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, maybe 6 o'clock. I don't know if I'd go any later. You know, during that time when kids are having their dinner and at night and the TV's on and dad's watching the news, something like that. Also thinking about, you know, parents being held responsible, but that's always been the case. Parents should be held more responsible about what their kids get up to. But the same with flying fixed-wing model aeroplanes and drones. And also, as you know, I think the council drone parks are fantastic, so perhaps there could be more of those around our state and country. So I'll hold it there. I'll leave it, all those thoughts with you. Thanks for making it through this far, and I'll see you in the air. Cheers.